looking at my screen, you can see that most of my in-library and the first portion of my professional vendor side experience has been with Millennium Sierra. So I understand that you're currently a Sierra library. I speak fluent Sierra Ease, so you can ask questions assuming I know what you're talking about. Today's demo, we are going to be focusing on what CARL libraries do all day. Before I jump into the software side itself, I want to give a little bit of an overview of the solution in its entirety, just so you understand all the pieces that I'm talking about, because it gets confusing when you say we've got this and this and here and there. So just so we know, everybody gets on the same page, I want to give an overview of the complete solution. So CARL's solution in general consists of 4 primary components, which would be the core software, the hosting through TLC Cloud Services. We have some optional add-ons, and these are true optional add-ons, which I'll cover in just a moment. And then I wanted to highlight services and support. Actually, I'm going to have Don highlight services and support, and I want to pull that out because it is not an afterthought at TLC. It is part of the solution, and we take the services and support and customer relationships very, very seriously, and it's part of the total package. Looking at the core software piece, it is a complete integrated solution. It consists of 4 primary components, which would be the CARL X Windows client, the web-based CARL Connect staff client, the CARL Connect discovery interface, and the CARL APIs. All of these sit on top of an Oracle database, and this Oracle database is queryable. Your systems folks will have access to it to be able to run queries as well as plug in other external features. But what we're going to do is we're going to take this and we'll double it. So standard part of the entire solution is you get both a live and a training instance of this whole thing, so that you have an area where you can test and trial and develop, and that's just included. One thing about CARL is, unless I specify that it's an extra piece or an optional add-on, CARL is a complete, total integrated solution. We don't sell it by modules. We don't sell it by this or that. If you get CARL, you get CARL in its entirety. So speaking of optional add-ons, these are generally either third-party or partner products that TLC partners with. So TLC Go, which I'm going to show in a little bit, it's our partnership with Solus for a mobile app. We integrate IBM Cognos Analytics, Syndetic Sunbound, Ilion Itiva. We do also integrate with Shoutbomb, but when I'm talking about optional add-ons, this is the sort of optional add-on that I'm talking about, where we can manage that relationship. I also want to highlight that we've also partnered with PatronPoint and can do similar additions with them. The CARL X Windows interface, it is Windows-based client software, which consists of 3 applications, which would be the administration piece, the cataloging piece, and the general staff piece. We're not going to spend time in CARL X during today's demo because it really is more of a technical services systems focus. You can do all of the patron services and circulation and such within the CARL X application, but we've also developed CARL Connect Staff. That is in active development. It is completely web-based. As you can see, it is mobile ready, and our public services has really migrated over to this web-based interface, which can be deployed anywhere and everywhere. It was originally designed for outreach, and we're going to be spending a lot of time today in CARL Connect Staff and in CARL Connect Discovery, because my understanding is that the majority of you really are focused on patron experience, patron outreach, and public services. CARL Connect Discovery is our discovery interface. It is obviously web-based, works in all modern browsers, and it is fully mobile aware and mobile capable, responsive screen design with a few cool enhancements. Moving on, we do have an optional enhancements, which I discussed, but I really want to highlight two of them. And the first of those is the TLC Go mobile app, which is our integration with Solus. It is a native app available on Android and iOS. It's got a lot of really, really cool features. In part, it's consortium friendly. So every member library, if you want, every member library can have its own logo, its own branding, its own rules. It is very highly configurable. So the panels that you see on this sample screen are just a sample of what's possible, but it includes a number of additional functions, and I'm going to cover that later in the demo as well. But we partnered with Solus to deliver this app, and it's been very well received. The other piece that I really want to highlight is our IBM Cognos Analytics, which is a business intelligence tool that works with all levels of the library organization. So it is another form of reporting tool, but it is a form of reporting tool that can be used anywhere from daily circulation statistics all the way up to annual reports formatted in a way that's optimized for presentations to the library board, to to the cities and to the state and to other areas and everything in between. With that, I'm going to hand things over to Don to talk about what's really important, and that would be the implementation services and support.
Okay, Joe, thanks. There is a question from Jennifer. Is the app available for any library in the system if they are interested, or must it be purchased by the system as a whole? Jennifer, or Jessica, excuse me, the answer to that question is you could do it individually. I mean, there's a consortium model as well as a individual library model as well. So whatever whatever you guys decide to do, we'll work with you on that. Thanks, Joe. Guys, what I'd like to do is spend about the next 10 minutes and speak to what really sets us apart from the competitors before we jump into the CARL demo. CARL is not our product for the masses. It's very customizable. It's for your larger urban libraries and consortias, and we're very selective in who we propose it to. We do have a product for the masses, and that's called Library.Solution. It's really for your small to medium-sized libraries. The CARL model is designed around bringing aboard only 2 or 3 new customers per year and not 9 to 10 like our competitors. Because of that, we could provide a level of support during the migration, during training, during your go live, post go live, and then with ongoing support that our competitors simply can't do. I'd like to start off with your migration. Because we're only looking to bring on, like I said, 2 or 3 new customers per year, we're able to provide our customers with a more focused attention and control over the migration process. When you're migrating 9 or 10 new customers per year, you're not going to receive that same level of attention. And when you have 9 or 10 migrations going on at one time or throughout the year, something is going to go wrong. And it's just a fact. It happens. I've heard it from customers. They don't get that level of attention that we provide during the migration. The project implementation plan that we put together is shared. We know exactly what we need to do, and the library knows exactly what is expected of them. It's a very collaborative plan, and we know what each of us is working on. We supply you with workbooks to fill out, but unlike our competitors, we don't simply give them to you, tell you to fill them out, and walk away. We work with you and we fill them out as you move through the migration. There are 2 weekly design sessions with Cindy, Ebony, the product owners, and the subject matter experts, where we work with you to help you develop the CARL system. Development during your migration, we do it. We do it for all CARL customers. Two of our most recent migrations have been OWLSNet, which is a consortium obviously in your state, and Frederick County Public Library in Maryland. Six pieces of functionality that OWLSNet needed before they went live was developed for them during their migration process. For Frederick County, they just went live last November, I believe. We developed five pieces of functionality that they needed before they went live. And we do this at no charge. And that is a huge differentiating factor between us and other vendors out there. Um, i- if you will need custom development that's not available in another ILS during that migration, you're going to pay for it. And you don't pay for it with TLC. Training, it can be done on site or remote. It's up to you. Our last two trainings have been done totally remote, and they typically take place over a 2-week period. During your migration, there is a lot of hand holding. And, I'm not saying that you guys need it, but we're there if you need us. And we're known in this industry for our smooth, seamless migrations. Moving on to your go live or cutover from Sierra to Carl, if that's what you guys choose to do. We could be on site for the go live, or we could do it remote, just like your trainings. If we're on site, we usually bring 2 to 3 people. Also, if we're on site, it's for a total of 6 days. We'll be on site the day before you cut over, obviously the day of the cutover, and then 4 days post go live to before that, to have that initial support. Your post go live period, this is now when you're up and running on a new system, probably the most important time in the process. This is where you cut your cord from the old system to the new system. What we do that's a little bit different than our competitors, and Owlsnet could speak to this really well, but we have a weekly call with you, the staff, and the Carl team. Okay, and these weekly calls can last as long as you want. Some Carl customers have run the calls for 30 days. Some customers, have run them for 2 months. But it's really that first 90 days when you're on your new system that is really really important. That we stay in touch with you. We review open tickets. We work to get them closed. We're going to ask for staff feedback during those meetings, and we're also going to want to hear what your patrons are saying as well. It's a very structured call. Like I said, we do them weekly, uh, and we get great feedback from our customers. They're very appreciative that we provide that level of support right after the go live. We're not worried about moving on to the next customer. We want to make sure that you guys are up and running and comfortable with the system. After your go live, or after your post go live timeframe, we'll roll you into our ongoing support and customer relations model. It's pretty unique in the industry. You'll have a monthly call with our associate director of customer relations and his team. These calls are typically scheduled on the same day each month. They last initially about an hour and a half when you're a newer customer. Some of our legacy customers, that call is down to 45 minutes to an hour. But during those calls, we're going to cover anything, any news regarding TLC, like our annual users conference, any upcoming customer roundtables that are scheduled. You'll be made aware of our monthly try-its, or how does that work webinars that we conduct every month for the Carl customer base. And we'll also cover like major projects that we're working on, like scheduled upgrades or server maintenance. We'll also discuss topics that you think are important. It could be news regarding your library, changes to your strategy, personnel changes, etc. Anything that you believe that you want to talk about that's important, we're going to get it on the agenda. Also, too, pretty unique, you'll have two projects running at all times. Projects are not development related. Okay. A project is something like a good example would be a new SIP2 connection or setting up a new EDI vendor. Once again, this is something that we do for free. You have two of them in queue at all times, and we do not charge for projects. What else? During those calls, we discuss, current releases, what kind of developments being done. We'll also discuss your annual development requests. Each Carl customer gets 3 per year. And that is, obviously development requests that are particular to your library. We could get to customers typically, they submit 2 or 3 per year. We usually get to 1 or 2 per customer. If we could get to all 3, that's great. But once again, you submit those in November. we get them baked into the roadmap, and we'll do our best to get them developed the upcoming year. In addition to your monthly calls, we also have customer roundtables. We started this during the pandemic. They're done quarterly. They're customer driven. They can range from things like, what CARL libraries are doing when they're shut down due to COVID, to product related roundtables, like the Ferberized view that Joe's going to show you here in a second. So, like I said, that's something that we started during COVID. It really brings that CARL customer base together on a quarterly basis, and once again, they're very well attended and appreciated by the customer base. And I'll wrap it up with the references that appear on the last slide. Please feel free to reach out to any of them, and they'll confirm that their move to CARL was seamless and that we stayed engaged the entire time. And with that, I'm going to kick it back over to Joe, if there's no questions.
All right. Thank you, Don. Let me close this out real quick here. All right. So now I think it's time for us to take a look at some software. Excuse me, sorry about that. We are now looking at the CARL Connect Discovery web interface. Very straightforward, very user-friendly interface. We've got library alerts at the top, which are very quick and easy to configure. Basic search box, and underneath we have library definable rotating carousel. The carousel can be set up with curated lists, or it can be ongoing searches. We also support new materials. You have any number of home pages that you want. They can be aspected by branch, by library system, however that whatever fits your model best. So even individual areas can fit in separate places. I want to start off with a fairly basic search, so I'm going to do Pride and Prejudice. By default, all results are relevance-based. The relevance in this catalog is a little bit, it's interesting because our relevancy algorithm works by, in addition to looking at the indexes, it also looks at what people in general have clicked on. So I happen to click on the great books Pride and Prejudice more frequently than normal as an outlier rather than as a rule, which is why it floats to the top, because it says, I think you want to look at that because you keep clicking on it, when in fact I don't. But Pride and Prejudice, again, very highly relevant. So we see Pride and Prejudice, Pride and Prejudice, Pride and Prejudice, and we're not really getting into the more esoteric stuff until we move further down. The second entry here, Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen, we right away see availability in a number of formats, and this is our Ferberized view. Excuse me. With the Ferberized view, the library, you have control over the what we call the trusted record, which is the record that controls both the book jacket and the overall entry. But then when we drill down, we can get into much more detailed information about the various copies and editions, and it shows availability based on the location that you are at. So if you are located in a different branch or within a different system, it will show the varying availability on this. Switch over to ebook, and it will show what is downloadable and what is available. Ferberized view is very, very popular. It's relatively recent. So we are still doing additional development on that and really perfecting it, but it has been very, very popular. Returning back to the results, we'll do a different search. I'm going to do Pride and Prejudice, and by capitalizing it, it recognizes a Boolean search, and in this case, it's going to be very, very similar with the results. I'm going to do the same thing again and use a Boolean shortcut with a double ampersand. Within this simple search interface, the system recognizes a lot of nuance and has the ability really to filter and facet in a lot of ways. And it changes the order in which things happen as you go down based on the type of search that it's doing and how it recognizes the search. In addition to the basic search that we have here, which allows for full complex command line entry, we also have a curated Boolean advanced search, which you can choose any or all. And then the drop-down menus are context sensitive. So I can have author contains, begins with, exactly matches, etc. Title contains, and so forth. I can switch that to, say, call number. By switching it to a number, it says the parameters will change. ISBN exactly matches or begins with, and similar modifications such as that. We also have the ability to add and subtract fields as desired and get a really nice curated search in that way.
Hey, Joe.
Yes.
Got a question from the Strum Public Library. Does it do spell check?
Does it do it? It doesn't do precise spell check, but it does do did you mean, if that's what you're going for. So if I want to do misspelling Pride and Prejudice, no, this one didn't work. It normally it does recognize a number of common misspellings. There we see I misspelled dinosaur, and it says try the following suggestion for dinosaur. It does it tries to find a match based on previous misspelling, so it looks for the common ones first, and then it will do follow-ups based on that. So dinosaur, it says try the following suggestion for dinosaur. While we're on the subject of spell check, it also does some predictive searching. Again, I did dino, and now it's predicting what I might want to look for. So frequent searches, titles, news feeds, etc. We also saw when with the failed search before, when it comes up with no response, we prompt for, well, do you want to do a different type of search? Or if you simply don't own the title, it will launch a search for you requesting an interlibrary loan according to whatever your ILL parameters are. Searching nearby libraries if you have like a statewide consortium, and recommend a purchase. Want to touch very briefly on our suggest a purchase functionality. I'm not going to go too deeply into detail on this. It does require, however, that you log in. The login is Mary. And by suggesting a purchase, it has a number of required fields, title, author, and your pickup branch. And the reason for this is, we'll do so I can choose a format. I don't have to, but I'm going to say I'd like it in a book. Publisher will be TLC. And then I can choose a pickup branch. And the reason I want to do this is when I submit this, this is sending it into CARL's acquisitions module directly associated with my borrower account. And what's happening here is that acquisitions librarians can go into the CARL staff interface and review suggested purchases. And from there, it can trigger the purchasing process. If the library decides to make the purchase, then the borrower who suggested it automatically gets a hold placed on the first copy that comes in. So it's a very smooth, seamless operation. I'm not going to go through the back end here because that does get into the technical services side of things. But the important point is that our suggest a purchase does directly link the patron account to the acquisitions process so that a hold automatically gets placed without staff intervention. If the library chooses not to acquire the material, then a notice is sent to the patron that the library has decided not to acquire the material. All right, so I should still be logged in. I'm refreshing my screen because now it shows that I am in Mary's account since I logged in as Mary. We can now take a look at the patron side of the account. Mary is a good borrower. She doesn't have anything currently overdue. I'm going to show you a naughty patron in a moment here, but within the patron account, patrons have a lot of self-service options. So right away, we see that Mary has a status of good. This is definable by you, so you can use whatever verbiage you want. So you can say status good, status valid, status current, whatever verbiage makes sense. Within the account, again, subject to library policy, the users can change their contact information, update address and phone number. A lot of times address updates do require library validation to prove that you're still in the library footprint, but you can, patrons can change their contact information if you allow, change the library PIN. One unique thing to CARL Connect Discovery is we have what is called an easy username and easy password. That allows users to create their own login credentials that make sense for them. So they don't have to key in a barcode or similar ID. They can input, for instance, I used Mary. I created this on my own. But anybody can put whatever username they want, whatever password they want. And this is baked into the system. And if they, for some reason, were to forget their easy password, there is a process in place for users to reset their passwords automatically without library intervention. Opt-in and notification. So saving loan history is a double opt-in. So the library opts in and then the patrons need to opt in. It is turned off by default. Excuse me, but saving loan history is an available option. Additionally, borrowers may opt into receiving certain notices. So text messaging for due date reminders, text messaging for items on hold, and you can opt into receiving checkout and renewal receipts via email. When patrons do that, rather than receiving a printed slip, they will automatically receive an email as a checkout receipt. There are certain types of notifications you'll notice that are not text and email opt-in. And those are things like overdues. Those will be configured automatically based on what is available because there are times that the library needs to have alternate options for reaching out in the events of overdues, bills, and so forth. Account activity. Currently, she has nothing checked out. We'll look at what checkouts look like in a moment, but we see this pending hold, which is the Winding Rivers Book of Greatness, and that is based on the fact that I just suggested a purchase. Should the library choose to purchase this the book, then this will go from a pending hold to a hold. So the borrower is always aware of what is going on. TLC does support recommendations based on past activity. I haven't done a lot with Mary recently, so I don't know if her recommendations are current. Looks like they are. So based on things that she has borrowed previously, we can look and see what all the system recommends that she has not yet had. These can be sorted. In addition, the library support, CARL Connect Discovery supports both saved lists and saved searches. Right. Are there, let's see, that is the brief summary of what a good account looks like. I'm going to log out Mary and I'm going to log in with a couple of different interests and sample sets I use, so I'm going across pollination. So I'm going to look at Fade Routha because I like Dune. And we see that there's an alert. There are two issues that need his attention right away. He has an overdue item and he owes an awful lot of money in fines. So this is immediately highlighted. So I'm going to go look at the highlighted loans. And in this case, he's got a material that is almost a year overdue. This was asked before. After a library determined period of time, this will automatically go from overdue to lost. You define the parameters by which that happens. This will happen soon. Now, I do have the ability to, normally if I were in good status, I would be able to renew this loan. However, my status is delinquent. And again, you can change that to whatever verbiage you want. So it doesn't necessarily need to stay delinquent. It could say C library or blocked or something similar.
Hey, Joe, got a question from Nate.
Yeah.
Does CARL Connect support staff curated lists?
Yes. And I will show you what a staff curated list looks like in just a moment. Right. So, but we do have full management of circulated materials. So loans can attempt to be renewed. In this case, he's not allowed to renew the material because his status is delinquent. He also needs to look at his fines, $61 in this case, a lot of overdue materials. There's also a lost fee that he has to pay and a processing fee. He can choose to pay one or all of them, or simply print off his fines. And then we do support integrated e-commerce through authorize.net, and that allows patron self-service for fines payment. He can also go to the library and pay the fines at the library proper. So I'm going to log out here and I'm going to address the question of, library curated lists. And this is where things get really, really, really easy. So I'm now logging in as a known staff account. And in this case, again, the same thing, but now we've got configuration and mobile configuration, which allows us to set up with the configuration. This allows us to set up those carousels that I mentioned just a little bit ago on the front page. And then the mobile configuration, as mentioned, we do have the responsive piece with the mobile configuration that allows for a separate and distinct view for mobile devices that has a few different options. So that would be where this configuration happens. But what we want to look now is saved lists and saved searches. So a saved list is a list of materials that I've saved, but below my list, I have config lists. And these are library curated lists of individual materials. So when I do a search for, baseball, I can select a material and I can add to a list. But as a staff member, instead of just saving to a personal list, I have a choice of saving it as a config or a personal list. So I could create a new list and call it I can capitalize baseball. I can save that. And now it has been added to my baseball config list. Add another one. Here. And now we've got two lists that have been added to my configuration list. So now I'm going to go back to my saved lists and I've got the baseball config list, which shows up. Similarly, I can do saved searches, again, personal or configuration. The saved searches is a live search. So it narrows down all of the queries that are used to figure out how the search was generated. And again, if I'm doing a search, I have the option to save the search, and then it will ask if I want to make it a config search or a personal search. And you'll notice that each of these configuration searches can also function as an RSS feed. So you can share it not only in CARL Connect Discovery, but also on with external services. Going back to configuration, we want to say National Poetry Month is over. We can remove National Poetry Month, and now we can do a config list, and we'll do baseball season is here. It will add the config list, and then when we go back to the front page, it will show the baseball list of my two titles on that list. We can also change the alert banner here. So to add alert, caption will say, download our new app. Make that quick change. Now, if we go to the front page, let's refresh it. We notice that National Poetry Month has been replaced with baseball, and we have an alert banner saying to download our new app. So that, in a nutshell, is the regular CARL Connect discovery. One thing I want to highlight very, very quickly is we've only accounted for about typically 2/3 of your circulation. CARL also includes a dedicated kids pack. Very graphical. This is optimized for tablets and similar devices. It is very, very kid friendly. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time here, but we've got exploration by categories with graphical pictures. So, you know, a young child wanting to look for dinosaurs can immediately go right to a dinosaur display, and series and chapter books, where again, we can immediately recognize Babar, or my favorite is Elephant and Piggy, and I keep losing track of them. There we go, Elephant and Piggy. And the nice thing about this, it's in order, so we display these series in order of the series. So especially if you're doing a series book like Magic Treehouse, but it is also very readily apparent what is going on with this. So we've got clear highlights. It's a book. Is it in or is it out? Simple language, easy for young readers to understand. When we click on it, so clicking on the in or the out will trigger the holds request process. So I clicked on out, it said this is checked out. Do you want it when it is checked in? Yes or no. Again, very, very easy language for kids to understand. Going into the detail, I want this. That's place a hold. Who is it by? What is the length? What is related? And the idea here is that kids can easily understand it and not get confused by more difficult verbiage like, you know, subject headings and holds and requests. This is very, very popular and frequently used in many of our school libraries as well. It's exactly the same interface that we use with our school libraries in places like the Chicago School District, Chicago Public Schools, and the Dallas School District. So that, in a nutshell, is CARL Connect Discovery. Are there any questions on that before I transition over to the staff side of things, or do we want to wait until I'm finished with the whole show? All right, I'm just going to go ahead then and transition over to staff. Oh, one thing I didn't mention is we also, I completely forgot this. Get a library card. We do support online borrower registration. Pay it pays to look at my notes. So the online borrower registration does do duplicate checking. It checks against the name and date of birth. So get rid of that one. You can tell I've done this a lot. So I'm going to go ahead and register that borrower. It does a duplicate check, and it automatically assigns a library card number, which would be defined in your configuration. You can either keep this library card number as a temporary number, or use it in the interim until you can assign a permanent barcode for that user.
Hey, Joe.
Yes.
Question from Jeremy. Loan history, view/export options?
View/export options. So it is view, and users can print it off. So let me see if I have a user. Log back in as Mary. I don't have a particularly robust search or user history for her. So if I go to her loan history, I have the ability to sort by checkout date, title, or author, and I can print the loan history.
Two more questions, Joe.
Yes.
A couple more. Does this support novelist or recommendations, read likes, series lists?
Yes.
Okay. From Lindsay, will recommendations still populate if patron doesn't have loan history turned on?
I need to find out about that. I'm inclined to say no, because there's nothing to base it off. In other words, in order to recommend, we need to know what you're doing, and we're only going to look at what you're doing if you give us permission to look at what you're doing. So if you, one of the unique things about CARL is that if you do not have loan history turned on, the system simply doesn't write it anywhere. It's not kept anywhere in the database. And if you choose to turn off your loan history, CARL immediately deletes the whole thing. We're very much a privacy first company. So we're going to err on the side of not tracking what doesn't need to be tracked, or what shouldn't be tracked. And we'll, if I want to turn off my reading history, I'm going to get an alert. This is going to delete it if you turn it off. So it's difficult to do recommendations if we've got literally nothing to go off.
Okay. Question, could you walk us through quickly how your discovery was implemented by OWLS? Yeah, I could take that, and that's something that we might want to take offline too, Kristen, to go in a little bit more detail. But when OWLS decided on CARL as a replacement for Sierra, they had pretty much made the decision already to move to BiblioCommons, which is obviously a third party discovery layer, and they went live on what you're seeing today, RPAC. But I would say, and I would have to get confirmation on this, I would say about 2, maybe 3, 4 months after they went live, they were up and running on BiblioCommons, which is obviously someone that we have APIs for. So I hope that answers your questions. Or question, I hope that answers your question. If we need to provide a little bit more detail, we could take that offline.
Okay.
So one more question from Lindsay.
Yes.
Will forthcoming / on order titles, excuse me, will forthcoming / on order titles display in catalog?
If you want them to, yes.
And then another question from Jessica. Could you show us a search for a series title?
Search for a series title. So I'll do Knights of the Dinner Table. It shows up as a magazine. And then now with the series, we have, I don't have good cover art for this, but we can look at all copies. I can look at subscription information, which locations have it. The subscription details then show, this is where we can add holding statements. We can look at individual issue information. We do have a well-developed interface. The main drawback to this is I've not been checking in materials as I ought to, so we're showing a little bit behind. But here we go into last year and we see what's in and what's expected, what's missing. If I say this would never showed up, I can frame it as claimed and manage it that way. All the management is within the CARL staff client, but it does filter down into the discovery interface. If we were doing something like People Magazine or Library Journal, you can either have it on the individual level, or you can simply have a summary, library retains past 6 months or similar. This is set up to show individual issue level retention. All right. So with that, yes.
Two questions real quick. I know we talked about misspelling, but what if we add or omit an S, for example, night of the dinner table? Hang on. Does it do a similar, did you mean, or will it pull the item up? Sierra is very picky about that.
So CARL Connect Discovery is very, very, very forgiving in that regard. So you'll notice I just did the same search without the S. So it's night of the dinner table. It pulled it right up without delay. Another example that comes up frequently is, I can't remember the exact name of it, but it's a search for something like the end of Camelot or something similar about the Kennedys. But the end of Camelot is the subfield B, or the subtitle in the title search. And within CARL, if you put in a subtitle from subfield B without any of the subfield A, it still pulls right up. It doesn't, no complaints whatsoever. It still shows as very highly relevant and floats right to the top. I know that your current system can get very, very finicky about that sort of thing. I'm trying to look for the exact title on that. Where is the? I'm trying to look for the exact, and I am somehow not seeing it. I think I've lost that piece of paper that's got my example. But yes, I can confirm that CARL is a lot, I hate to use the word fuzzy, but it's a lot more intelligent in trying to figure out what you're going for. Was there another question?
Yeah, from Meredith, search for book series, not magazines or journals. And I think that kind of ducktails off of what Jessica was asking about a book series search.
Right. So Harry Potter would be a bit.
Yeah, Harry. Exactly.
Or let's do another one. We'll do Goosebumps. And this would be how a Goosebumps series search. So we'll notice here, this is part of the Goosebumps series, but it just says stay out of the basement and it's series Goosebumps. You can also, we also have shortcuts so we can do like title. Oh. One moment, I just have my VPN drop. So, oops. think I did that wrong. We do have the ability to facet on series. I just haven't perfected the exact verbiage on that. But we do have the ability to focus and facet on multiple areas like that. But we do totally do house, again, showing the magic treehouse looking just by series. So our keyword search is a true keyword search. It looks at the entire record and it figures out what is really probably the most relevant. And that is going to be based on a number of factors, not the least of which is what is commonly used. All right, I've got 35 more minutes of demo time if my information is correct. So I do want to take a few minutes now and switch over to the staff interface. So I'm going to go ahead and log in. This is CARL Connect Staff, our web-based staff interface. I log in with my credentials, and the next thing it asks is to select my branch. And this is configurable by you. So your users can either be assigned to a branch or can choose their branch at login. In a consortial environment, you would be logged into your respective library and again prompted for the proper branch or, pardon me, automatically assigned. And this is really useful if you have staff who float from branch to branch or work in multiple locations. But a lot of users will not see this please select branch. They will just go to their default position. Once you're logged in, you can always change your branch with this dropdown. But I'm going to stay at Ayers right now. We currently are building out CARL Connect staff for additional functionality. We have full circulation and some very good items management that we're going to look at today. Our developers are working on building out our acquisitions interface. And one question you asked directly was staff searching within the staff side search interface. The staff side search interface is the same as the public discovery interface, but you're logged in as staff and will have a little bit more of an enhanced view into the materials themselves, but it is exactly the same discovery interface with exactly the same search parameters as the public gets. So there's no difference between what you see and what the staff gets. So I'm logged in as a staff member. And when I log in, this is showing Mary's account. Normally it would log in as, let me do that again. It should log in as me. Nope, it didn't. So I'll have to log in as me manually here. But typically when I would log in from the CARL Connect staff, it would simply bring my credentials over. And it would be exactly the same interface. And we're going to see how that really translates in practice in a few minutes. I'm going to start with circulation. So I did, when you go into circulation, this is the patron management side, which I'm going to start with because we did a manual registration. So when I look up a user, I can either scan a barcode or I can do a keyword search. We do have advanced searching as well, but I really like the keyword search. So if I want to look at our misbehaving user from earlier, Fade Rautha, we can search that up and it brings back all of the results. And now I have access to his entire patron record. I can modify his status. So if I want to overwrite it, I can switch it to an overridden status if I have the authorization. I can replace a temporary ID with a permanent ID if we're issuing a physical library card. We'll notice we have the first, middle, last name, and full legal name. This allows you, and full legal name is whatever you want to be, but we're often asked about, can we use preferred names and how do we manage that? And this would be where you can have a preferred name and a legal name, and you can do that however you choose. CARL supports multiple different card types, which you can change as you want. Most of them are library definable. A handful are hard-coded. So online registration is a fixed type, but the parameters of an online registration are definable by you. And then outreach grants access to our outreach/homebound functionality, which has additional capabilities for delivering materials, creating wish lists, and so on and so forth. Staff notes, you'll notice I scanned this in and immediately a staff note popped up. Access to address information. You can add a secondary address if you so choose. The opt-ins and notifications are the same as the user-defined opt-ins and notifications. So if you're at the desk, they could say, hey, can you opt me in for this or that? Library statistics, the statistical headings that we have here are pretty well meaningless. We do not include gender, opt-in, household income, internet access. These are simply 1, 2, 3, 4, and they're coded however you want for whatever statistical purposes you want. These will talk to SIP2 connections. So any library defined data that you want to put here, we call it library statistics, but these are really your fields to use however you want. We support drop downs, we support pop-ups, we support free text, however you want to do that. Simple yes, no, whatever you need to have this work for you through whatever, fixed fields, variable fields, library defined fields. This is the area you would do that. Usage statistics, we keep track of when they registered, where they registered, who registered them, and then we also look at last edits, last activity, and last self-service activity. From this interface, we can also then go into my account, and we are leveraging, as staff, we are leveraging the same CARL Connect Discovery interface, but in within the staff view. So now we notice that because we're logged in as staff, we have additional payment options. So we can waive, we can do partial payments, and do other negotiating. So if I wanted to waive this processing fee, bring that up, it'll say how much do I want to waive, or I can waive a portion of that. And I am required to add a waiver note so that there is, and this waiver note is attached to the account. So there's always a paper trail, who waived it and why.
Joe, I have a question from Jessica.
Yes.
Can each library in the system define these fields the way that works best for them?
I need to follow up. I want to say yes, but it might be global because of the way the database is configured. Let me talk with Ebony to find out about that, because I'm not 100% sure how it's stored in the database.
Okay.
But let me follow up. I want to say the answer is yes, it can, but I don't want to commit to that until I'm 100% sure. One of the things that you'll notice about the CARL Connects is that where possible, we do leverage CARL Connect Discovery rather than trying to reinvent the wheel with yet another search interface. So there's a lot of interaction back and forth between the staff and public interfaces, because it just makes sense. We want to provide a consistent experience across the board. I want to do a couple other searches before I show check-in, check-out. Another favorite search of mine. So again, this is keyword, just like we saw with CARL Connect Discovery, but now I want to do a search for Denver, because a lot of my accounts are registered in Denver. So now it's looking for anything in Denver, Colorado, anything on Denver Street, anybody with a last name of Denver. If it sees Denver in the patron record, it's going to pull it up. Now we've got 113 patrons that have Denver in the record. If I put in the word delinquent, it's going to find all of the delinquent records in Denver. So this is a very, very refinable keyword search. It looks across the entire database, across multiple fields, and you can really, really narrow it down. So I could also do a search for 303. Oh. Search on phone numbers. No, so it does not do partial searches like that. I'd have to do an exact phone number, but I can do. Look for everything that I've registered. So I've got everything that is associated with my email address. And it looks like I've got 2 Duncan Idahos, because you'll notice I just registered one, but I put in a different date of birth. So I can do a user merge, and again, I can do a keyword search. So I can do that one, and I can do that one, and now it will allow me to put them together and merge the users in a side-by-side view. All right, so now we've done that. Well, before I switch over to the library services, check-in, check-out, if we do a registration, so normally you would either have new user or full registration. I'm going to bypass the new user, which does duplicate checking. Full registration does not. If I go to full registration, again, this is just a blank form where I can fill out everything. The advantage to one of the advantages to CARL Connect staff registration is that if you have a compatible driver's license type and you have a barcode scanner that can read the barcode on the back of a driver's license, it will automatically populate this form for you. So you can register people very quickly and easily. All right, let's go back to circulation and now take a look at what your library staff do all day. So we have checkout, check-in, so forth. So I can scan a user ID or do a keyword search. We've already done the keyword search, so I'm just going to do a how things would really work. Oh, come on. And my barcode scanner is badly misbehaving. All right, so we'll do that. All right, so I've brought up my user, and so I've got how many holds, fines, fees, just a very, very brief summary of the user, but not too detailed. And from here, I can just go through and check things out. I can override the due date if I so choose. So do there we go. And I have checked out the material. This item cannot be borrowed because the barcode is invalid or does not exist. So again, you have error checking and overrides and so forth. Then when I'm finished with that, I can do finish receipt. How would you like your receipt? I'm not going to send a receipt, but I can have the choice. If she were signed up for email receipts, it would automatically send an email receipt. And now the screen clears. Check in. Again, I have the ability to override the date. For instance, if I'm clearing a book return, and it will prompt me for what date, so I can backdate to yesterday. But I'm not going to override. So then I can once again do scan it in and check it back in. Additionally, I have the ability to check it in as damaged. So if I check it in as damaged, it will receive it, but it will mark it. It will set it with the damaged item setting. It will add it to the damaged items list, and it will not trigger any holds. So let's go ahead. Port it as damaged. It will bring it in. And now it has changed the item status to damaged. And I have the option of printing a receipt if I want, or if I want to walk away, I can clear the list and get rid of any related fines and borrower information. Going to manage. This part is really cool. The fill list is your hold shelf pull list. And it allows you to take the pull list that you would normally print and use a mobile device, a tablet or a phone, and go through and do your pull list electronically. So you can choose to facet on hold type. You can facet on a specific location. You can also sort on pickup. So you sort on your pickup branch in case you need to transfer it around. So like we know that the Edgewater and Wonder, we're going to have to grab this material and ship it over. Or you can sort on call number. So you have a variety of sort options. You have a variety of filter options. And then you can go through and pick your material, and you can say, immediately interact with it based on whatever you need to do. So if I go looking for it and it's not there, I can flag it as not found, and that will put it as a missing item. If I found it, I can flag it as found and put it on a book cart. If I check it in, that's saying I found it and I'm putting it on the hold shelf right now. Fill with allows me to just pick whichever one, so I don't have to look for a specific barcode. I can say, yeah, there are 5 of them here. I'm grabbing one and I'm filling it with the one that's in my hand. And of course, you can always look at the specific item detail if you so want.
Hey, Joe, got a question?
Yes.
If you leave the check-in function to check out an item, does it save the override date you were just using?
No. I don't believe so. I believe once you navigate away, it resets the overrides. If you stay on that screen, it'll keep the override. Now, damaged items is a different story. With damaged items, it will only retain the damaged item for the material you're checking in. Date overrides will retain for the duration of whatever you're doing, but whenever you're done doing that. So when you clear the screen or walk away from that screen, it resets it to the original, whatever the default is. All right, wander list. We talked about missing items. The wander list is the list of materials associated with my branch that have gone missing. And from here, I can keep it in the wander list and go through and look for it. If I find it, I can check it in. And if after a certain amount of time I've still failed to find it, I can go ahead and withdraw it and begin that process of removing it from the system entirely. The damaged item list. This is the list of, we have to run a background process to update the status on the back end before the one we just checked in will show up here. So in the demo environment, I trigger most of the processes, but normally this would be an automated process that runs every few minutes that would just update all of the statuses within the system. So now we've got a, but it's showing up as damaged at this branch. And then we can go through and do whatever we need to do with the damaged items. So we can add a note, we can withdraw it or delete the item. Additionally, with the damaged items, if we find it on the shelf or it's already been checked in and handled and we find after the fact, oh, it's damaged, you can scan or enter that item ID and add it to the list. All right. Any questions on circulation functionality there? We've covered. All right. So then the other piece I wanted to show you in CARL Connect Staff is items management. So you receive items, you need to do work with items at your local branches. If you're doing decentralized cataloging or decentralized item receipt, or if you have shelf-ready books that just want to show up. Again, we have the ability to search. We have a couple of ways of doing this. So if you have a barcode that you want to pull up, you can simply scan the barcode. Bibliographic identifier is CARL E's for what you would call a bib record number. With CARL, they are all numeric, but it's conceptually the same thing as your .b number. Or we can do a bib search. And I'm going to do a bib search just to show what that looks like. And once again, we are going into discovery. So I'm going to do a title search of Outlander. And I'm looking specifically for Outlander, a novel. I go in, I get the details. Yes, this is the one I'm looking for, so I'm going to select it back. And now it pulls in that item information for
Joe,
me
quick
to.
question.
Yes.
Can you print the pull list?
I
believe you can.
Yeah, you would just use your standard browser printing.
Yeah.
And then the CARL X staff also has the ability to print it as more of an Excel type report. So you have a couple of options. All right. Okay, so the specific question that you asked about was adding a new item. So I've got one copy, and it's in the central circulation branch, but I'm working in the Ayers branch. So I need to add a new item for the Ayers branch. So simply add the item, and then it's going to give me the important info or the option to enter the information I need. So my barcode scanner is misbehaving. I have to key it. I can add an item call number of please don't yell at me for using bad call numbers. I took a class in cataloging and have completely forgotten how to assign call numbers in the interim. I can choose my locations. Again, we could do lucky day. You can add reference collection. I'm just going to put it in the general circulating collection because that's how ours is configured. But really, a location can be any collection you want to have. So you can have circ, you can separate fiction from nonfiction. We've got the children, we've got reference. A lot of libraries will have a new items location for materials that they don't want to share out or that have different loan rules. However you want to set that up. So we'll do status. I'm going to put that directly on the shelf. You can designate an alternate on shelf display status. So if I wanted to do that, I'm not going to do that. And then we have the owning branch and owning location. So the owning branch would be Ayers. This is basically for fund and statistical purposes. And the owning location would be kind of where it began. If you have floating collections, and CARL does support floating collections, the location will move with the material, but the owning information will remain fixed with the library, so you can keep track of how it moves around. And then what is the media? This is going to be, we'll do adult hardbacks. Do we want to, I have the option of doing a manual suppression, but I don't. I can add any notes that I want to add. And I can do either predefined notes or I can do a free text note. For serials, or if you're dealing with annuals like, Photo's Guide to Disney World, You can also add chronology and enumeration at the item level or issue level without having to create a serial record. And that allows you to do issue level holds on the material. Since this is a simple monograph, we're not going to do that. I'm going to go ahead and save my item. And now it is saved in the system. And that's all it takes to create an item in CARL Connect staff. Okay, so I've got 10 minutes left of demo time. So I wanted to highlight one or two things. I talked earlier about optional add-ons. The first add-on I wanted to highlight is our TLC Go. You are looking at my phone, which you can tell I'm on Eastern time if you look at my time. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to show you what Wellington City Libraries has with TLC Go before I show you our demo example. Wellington is one of our CARL customers in New Zealand, and they have things configured for what they want to do. So they've got catalog using the New Zealand spelling. They've got their list of materials that they've got with their content carousel. If I hit on more, they have multiple carousels that you can choose from. So all sorts of pre-selected that they can highlight as they go. They have FAQs for visiting the library. So when I last spoke with New Zealand a few weeks ago, they are still in lockdown. So they have this highly prioritized, so everybody sees it before they come in. And then my account, nearest libraries, if I go to nearest libraries, they're open, but they're all around 13,000 kilometers away. But it will provide instructions on how to get there. Their e-library integration with their various ebooks, e-content, how that works. So going into, and then this goes into a website that is maintained by the city government. Online registration, any payments that you want to make, fines, fees, news. And then to scan the ISBN barcode allows you to scan a barcode on the back of a book to see if it is in the library. And this is what Wellington has set up for themselves, and it is working very, very well for them. They've got several thousand users. It's a very popular service with them. Our demo environment is a little bit different. Again, very similar types of functionality. So we've got the library is closed due to weather conditions, although it is no longer, well, depending on where you are. It was snowing here a couple of days ago. Do you still have snow up there? You can never tell in March in the Midwest. It's just, it varies from day to day. But again, a slightly different layout, online resources. In this case, it's going to link directly to various content that's available, Overdrive, Canopy, Hoopla, and so forth. We also have the scan ISBN barcode. Within the app, we also support self-check. That has not been turned on in our app, but if you want, you can have users use this app to go through and check out materials using just their phones, and this will work with both barcodes and with RFID. That is an available option. And curbside pickup is also an available configuration within TLC Go. So a lot of really, really good, useful functionality there. The other piece I wanted to highlight, also an optional add-on, is our Cognos Analytics. I'm just going to slip in here very quickly. And this is the newest piece of the CARL family, and it allows for web-based reporting and display. So in this case, I have a report of borrowers by type, which I can run as, I'm going to run it as HTML. So you get a web page, and this will allow us to get just this is a demo database, so the breakdown isn't great, and I'm still training myself how to do this. But allows us to look at the various statuses of the patrons as well as the patron type, so we can get a breakdown. The next thing is, so it's patron type 7, patron type 15. We can tie it in with the definitions portion of the database, or we can have adult, youth, outreach, staff, and so on and so forth. And you can just get a glimpse, in this case, get a good glimpse at a glance of what the patron types are in this type of, and then the statuses. Are they good? Are they delinquent? Are they soft blocked, and so forth? So we can just get an at a glance view of the overall patron. And this is just a sample of what you can do with Cognos because it's a nice graphical interface. If I go page down, I can look at the patron type and the patron count in a nice little chart. We also have a more cataloging side, duplicate ISBNs, but this dashboard allows us to create reports that work for, I've got another one because, so we can do hourly circ by branch, and there we can look at what is the circ, what is the hour. When you break this apart, then you can look and see, okay, where are things busy, at what branches are things busy, and if you're trying to balance your how your where you put staff and when you need the most coverage within the branch. This type of report is very useful for that. In this case, because it's a demo database, the results are a little bit weird, but we'll notice that on day 5, which is a Thursday, I tend to be particularly busy, and so I need the most staff there. All right, so that is the bulk of what I really wanted to cover with you today on the public services and PAC side of things. At this point, Don, if you have anything to add, or shall we just open it up for questions?
I think we could open it up to Q&A.
All right.
And guys, I apologize. I know I missed some of your questions that you put in chat. So if I miss something, please feel free to go ahead and ask it now in a live environment.
So we have a couple of, excuse me, we have a couple of catalogers in the call. Could you briefly show us what a MARC record looks like in your cataloging interface?
Yes, give me just a second or two to get that
Sure.
set up. All right, so our cataloging interface has not yet moved over to the web, so signing in. Boom, 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 boom. Where did it go? Oh, here it is. All right. So our cataloging interface, again, we have a searcher. So we have a variety of options that we can search on. So last time I was working in here, I was working with authority records. So I've got author name headings highlighted, but we're looking for a BIP record. So I'm just going to do title word. Within this, we have the ability to look. So the demo public library, this is our CARL database, but you'll notice underneath, I've got some other sources. These are Z39.50 sources that I can configure within the databases. So I can do copy cataloging directly within this interface using Z39.50. But I'm going to take this and pull it up. And I'm working on 2 screens, and it's bouncing it over to my other screen, so I have to pull it over. So right now I have a brief summary view. Is this the record that I want to look at? I can see if there are any items associated, but it brings up the MARC by default. Is this the one I want to work with? Yes, I'm going to select that back. And now I've got a MARC record. One thing about our cataloging interface is that you do have a fair amount of control over the look and feel, so you can set up the font, you can set up the colors. I have it set so that the tags are in red, indicators are in blue, subfields are in green, and the various fields, I want to have it highlighted, what each MARC tag is. you can simply put it on short form there. We do reserve a couple of 9XX fields for specific purposes. So one is we store the CARL bibliographic identifier in the 910, and we store an edit history in the 998. So we know when the change was made and what change was made. Within here we have, so we can do both validation and authorization. So if I do authorize, I pull this up, it's looking a matched authority on a preferred heading. It's looking at derived headings. It sees ghost headings and so forth. So it's just going to do all of that manually. CARL's authority record management is actually very, very slick. So if you have to update a subject heading for whatever reason, because Library of Congress changes how that works, all you need to do is change the authority record, and CARL will automatically update every bib record associated with that authority record with the updated authority into the MARC record. So you don't even need to do a global update or anything like that. Speaking of global update, CARL does include global MARC update and global item update as a component. So if I do global MARC update, I have the ability to search on a range, look at tags, contains, indicators, bytes, subfields, and as I do this, it will go through and create a fairly self-explanatory, so we'll do tag 245, indicator 2 is 4, and tag 245, subfield A is except let's do not, and we'll do starts with. And now I've got a search that is going to look for bad indicators within the bib record database. So yeah, that's a brief look at how cataloging works. We also, with the global MARC update, if you just have a spreadsheet of bibliographic IDs that were from a generated report, you can also use that for the global MARC update.
Hey, Joe, got a couple questions in chat.
Yeah.
One, this is probably for you. Can you compare some features of CARL versus Sierra?
Compare some features of CARL versus Sierra. Wow. That's that's a big ask. I like to think of CARL as, in a lot of ways, it's in part what Sierra wanted to be back in when Sierra first came out in 2011, 2012. It's, here, let me pull this over. So it's got the global MARC update and global item update. It is a bit of a different in terms of how it's laid out, but it's a very open system in terms of how the underlying database is set up. So the reporting is very good. We've got a large number of robust APIs, and we're able to build it in a way that makes it very friendly in terms of trying to develop a web interface, which you've seen that we're doing is we're building a web interface as we go, but it's because of this underlying Oracle database that talks to the system so seamlessly. In discussing the web-based interfaces, we've made the conscious decision that we're not simply going to pick up CARL functionality, CARL X functionality, and drop it into the web. We're rethinking how we do things. We're rethinking what makes workflows, what does a modern workflow look like as opposed to how things looked in 2005 or 2010, because things have changed. You still need to key acquisitions records, for instance, but not nearly as often. The majority of acquisitions occurs with vendor book carts. So really, you're probably more interested in how well do we interface with Ingram, or how well do we interface with Baker and Taylor? Can we ingest those records with the 945 order information? How seamless is our EDI? So we're focusing very heavily on EDI ordering, receiving, and claiming. and just smoothing out those processes and rather than just duplicating things. So with every piece, we're asking what makes sense, what does the modern workflow look like? And we're also trying to smooth things out even more, make things more efficient so you don't have to jump from screen to screen to screen if you don't have to. That's really our big design approach. The other piece of our design approach is using modern devices. So everything you've seen is on the web is very tablet aware, mobile aware. We had an instance a year or two ago with tornadoes in Oklahoma. One of our customers had an extended power outage, but the library was still open, and they were using their cell phones to continue providing library services because CARL Connect staff was able to continue managing that. So that's a real, a real powerful piece. Functionality wise, CARL and Sierra do pretty much the same things. They go about it slightly different ways, but there's not a functionality drop anywhere between Sierra and CARL. We deal with very, very large library systems. So you'll notice, we've got Los Angeles, we've got OWLSNet, we've got TLN in Michigan. These are large, complex library systems that have to do large, complex library system sorts of things in terms of patron management, item management, bib record management, very, very complex loan rule capabilities. I would argue that CARL's loan rules are actually even a little bit more powerful than Sierra's because CARL distinguishes between a branch and a collection or branch and a location, which allows a lot more flexibility in how we manage that. We have that distinction. So there's even more power and flexibility in that regard. And then the last piece that is a real big difference with CARL is what Don talked about at the beginning of this. We don't have a huge customer base, but we have a very, very engaged, intimate customer base. So we're constantly talking with all of our customers, and we go out of our way to take very good care of our customers. A really good example of just how we are philosophically is we had an issue a few months ago where there was I can't remember who it was, but a library was having trouble getting a third-party integration working with CARL. It was like there was a problem with, I can't remember if it was Overdrive or BiblioCommons or what it was, but there was an issue with that. And our support team quickly identified that it was a problem with that external provider. But instead of saying the problem's with the external provider, go ahead and reach out to them, we reached out to the external provider and worked with the library and just stayed in the loop the whole time, because at the end of the day, our concern is not does CARL work? Our concern is everything working for you? And if it's not, how can we help? And that's really really very important to us, is that you be successful as a library. I realize that was a long-winded response. I'm sorry for that, but
that was nice, Joe. Thanks. Got a couple more questions in chat. When checking in checking in a damaged item, what's the ability to view previous patron?
We store up to three previous patrons based on library what the library wants to do. So we can store up to 3.
Yeah. Next question, and this is one that I think we might have to get back to everybody on, is from Jessica. What have been some recent improvements that have been made based on user feedback? And Joe, if you can't answer that, we could get Ebony to help us. Ebony, guys, is she's our product manager. She's been with TLC for going on 16 years. She owns the roadmap. She works directly with the customers, with Cindy during implementation. So what I can do is I'll ping Cindy and Ebony and get back to you with a written response on some of the things that we did. For example, like I mentioned earlier, we did all that customization for OWLSNet. If that's the kind of stuff that you want to see, what we did specifically for them, what we did specifically for Frederick County during their migration, I could provide you, Joan, I could provide you a written response on that.
But there are a couple of things I can
Yeah,
mention right now.
go ahead. Perfect.
Right now, yeah. So what you're looking at here, this screen, this is our latest version of CARL Connect Staff, where we've got these nice little tiles that are laid out. We had feedback from staff. This just went in January. Last December's we did a demo for another system up in Wisconsin that had a different front end interface where the login looked different and the tiles were laid out differently. And we changed this to a more streamlined pop-up look and feel, or the more streamlined look and feel based on user feedback. We had user feedback that they wanted it easier to switch branches back and forth. So we've simplified that. And we are frequently, when we're looking at patron information, so going back, I'm going to, go back to Mr. Fade Routha here. Simple little highlights. So, very basic thing, but a very impactful thing. Can you open the patron record with staff notes open if there are notes and closed if there are no notes? Simple things like that. That also came out, I think, if not this last release, the release before. So some of it is fairly minor, some of it is pretty major, and we're some of the feedback that we're incorporating now is as we build out the acquisitions module. I'm going to start with. We're changing. There we go. Just how all of this looks. Changing some of our interfaces with regards to the way the invoice number searching works, keyword searching. The advanced search is new, but probably I don't think it does anything yet. That's a placeholder for further invoice searching, again, based on user feedback. So it's a constant ongoing thing. The damaged items functionality was a library request that had been ongoing for a long time. We're continuing to refine that. The next piece that you may have noticed is not there yet is, does it attach billing to the patron record? And we have not yet put that in because there's a lot of logic behind it because different libraries handle the billing in different ways. So we're working with development partners on what that logic needs to look like. So that's the next step. With our Ferberized view, the next step is setting up a system that works so that you can add to a list or place a hold based on format without necessarily having to go down to a specific bib record. So kind of that interstitial stage that allows for format level management. Like, I don't care which version of Pride and Prejudice I want, but I want a copy of I want the first available copy of the book, regardless of edition. There's logic we have to do behind that. And we have to work with we're working with our development partners on fine tuning that as well.
And thank you, Jessica. Jessica said, great examples. It's nice to hear your responsiveness, to these things. Another question from Lindsay: is there electronic ordering within acquisitions?
Yes. So typically, I mean, we have full support for EDI. When you bring in material, I mentioned with the record, it's not here, but when we're loading a record, let me open up materials. So do January orders so we can look at that. When I pull up the list of orders, just pull one of these up. We'll notice here that there's a 945, and this has embedded purchasing information. In this case, it would be from Ingram. Our loaders can interpret that and will automatically queue these for purchase using EDI based on how the EDI is configured. Does that answer that question?
Lindsay said thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
I think that came from her. Yeah. All right, we've got about 14 minutes left. Any other questions?
So I think there was a question about from Ettrick, can you link patron records like family members?
That is currently on the roadmap. We've had that requested. What we're doing is to get a little bit deeper under the hood. We're taking the work that we did in Ferber, which uses an intellectual identifier, and we're doing the same concept with patrons so that there would be a family identifier, however you want to configure that, and that would allow records to get linked. And we're working on that right now. Additionally, TLC Go allows linking records within the mobile app so that users can do that for themselves and manage multiple accounts within the app so that you can see what everybody is doing and managing directly from there. So we've got two approaches. So we're building it into CARL, but as of right now, the TLC Go mobile app will link records for you at the app level.
And that's actually a great question, and that is development that's on the roadmap. You know, per our customer base. I think I can't remember off the top of my head who the libraries were. I think TLN, the consortium that Joe mentioned earlier, might have been one of them. But that's just a case where, you know, that functionality doesn't exist today, but our customers that have asked for it, and we do have it on the roadmap.
Brevard asked for it.
Brevard, okay, thanks, Joe.
So I'm logging into, so since we're talking roadmap briefly, I may as well show this to you. So this is our CARL community web portal. All our customers have access to it. There's a lot of really cool stuff in there where you get access to support, the TLC users forum. We have upcoming news. There's our documentation. What I wanted to highlight though is our CARL solution roadmap. And this is a real-time roadmap that lets you look into what we're doing and what is keeping our development team busy. You'll notice this is, it says last updated 3 days ago, but it's in the process of updating. But this, sometimes you'll see this updated multiple times in and out. Oh, here we go, last updated less than a minute ago. So this really reflects in real time what our developers are doing. So we've done a bunch of backfill work, full legal name updates, manual improvements in blocking. Excuse me, we're doing some invoice functionality. We're adding Go Lost functionality in CARL Connect staff. Adding some more API information. Discovery, we've got backlog and we're under review. So you can see what we're working on and where things are coming out, when we expect things to come out, and really just give you a high level of transparency into our roadmap and development.
Hey, Joe, got a question?
Yes.
Was the high demand holds feature discussed?
High demand holds. We did not discuss that, but I can discuss that for you right now. One thing CARL does, let me slide this over, is, oh my. Okay, now my screens are getting all wonky. I'm sorry, this is like the scrolling display from, all right, bring it over here. We have a number of canned reports under reports. So when we go into circulation, we have a number of dedicated reports that we would run. So high demand holds, we have a number of ways that we can put that. So we've got heavily circulation to holds purchase alert by branch or location code. So holds purchase alert, what that would do is it looks at your ratios. So if I do slide this over, so we can run this, and the report option is we can include missing or lost items or not, and then it looks at a ratio of title holds to copies, and we'll generate the report from there. We also have the ability to generate, I don't remember if it's a canned or an ad hoc report that will tell the total number of holds on a title. So both of those are available. Most libraries prefer this particular alert because it does factor in the ratio, and you can determine the ratio for yourself. And all authorized staff are able to run reports. Our roadmap includes migrating all of these reports over to the Cognos interface. We just haven't got there yet, and that would allow even more visibility into that, and then we could do various charts and graphs and so forth.
Got another question, Joe?
Yes.
Can we see a search for a series title such as the Joe Pickett series? Wondering if they are in order and easily identified as such.
I don't know if I have Joe Pickett in this catalog, so let me LAPL, do Joe Pickett. Right, so that we've got the Joe Pickett series. They are in this interface. They are not in order. One thing I will say though is that within CARL Connect Kids series are in order, but CARL Connect Discovery, right now we do not have them in order. But that's great feedback. We can take it back to our development team. The issue though that we've run into with series in the kids pack, we manually maintain the series. A lot of times with some of these series though, the MARC records themselves get corrupted, so it's hard to maintain the order because things get warped. So we try to do it, it just tends to break. All right. This is the example I was talking about earlier with the end of Camelot, where the subfield B in the MARC record, I searched on end of Camelot, and the top result was this book, where I just want to go into the MARC record, where if we look at the 245, we'll see subfield A is Killing Kennedy, subfield B is the end of Camelot. So a search on the subfield B immediately pulls up the proper record. Other questions?
Did you say MARC record corrupted? Did you mean it has to be in the MARC record correctly?
Yeah, we look at the series information within the MARC record. And so you can get into some really finicky things, especially when you're dealing with ancillary pieces and so forth that are part of the series, but it's like it says it's part of the series, or somebody miscatalogs it as part of the series, and that breaks the series order. But in general, all of our searching is going to look at the MARC record and use the information available within the MARC record. And that's why we can't make blanket promises that it will work in series order, simply because it does depend on what is in the MARC record itself. We switch over to, if I go back to the kids catalog, now I'm going to search for Magic Treehouse. And okay, Oh, no, I didn't do it that way. I have to do it. If I go into the series, then I search for the series within Magic Treehouse rather than doing a keyword search. If I go through this interface, this will bring it in the correct order. But again, it does require, let me see here. My eyesight is going. Ballpark. I'm pretty sure I've already gone past it. Anyway, the kids pack we do in series order. The adult pack we don't promise series order, but we do look at the entire mark record and try to make it as relevant as we possibly can. Now I know I missed it. Anyway, while I'm looking for this, are there other questions that I can address?
We got about 3 or 4 minutes left. Any other questions?
All right, well, okay, I am just apparently going blind or not seeing the right thing here. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and get my eyes checked out and move on. So with that, I think if there are no further questions, I'm going to hand things off back to Don for any closing remarks.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. And thanks, guys. Great feedback today. I mean, great questions today. That's always encouraging. Nate, I'm wondering if there is a way that you can pull those questions off of the chat within Meet or Teams and send that to Jill and I, so that we can provide, if you think necessary at this point, a narrative response as well to those questions.
Sure, I can work on that.
Okay, appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if there's no other question, guys, once again, we're right up at 2 hours. Really appreciate the questions today. Very interactive, which is really encouraging. You guys asked some great questions.
We appreciate it. Joe and Don, thank you for joining us. We'll be in touch with you if we have any questions or anything like that. For the rest of you, we will have another demo at 1 p.m. today. There should be another Teams link in your email somewhere. And go ahead and follow that at 1, and we'll go from there. Thank you, folks.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.